Hello, welcome to Ennara Reacts. Today I'm watching another video from the Fat Electrician from one of his fat files. And this one's on world's biggest unregulated bank, Starbucks. Not sure how they count as a bank, but let's find out.
I'm just going to be honest with you. When I started this video, I kind of just wanted to know how they made so much money selling overpriced coffee. I was not expecting them to secretly be an unregulated bank that was powerful enough to manipulate the real estate industry. But here we are. Today we're talking about Starbucks, the coffee shop that also manages $1.7 billion worth of other people's money, doesn't have to pay interest to them, and faces no banking regulation while they do it.
What?
Delete me!
You look nice.
I thought we were gonna do Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Why aren't you dressed up?
I forgot.
The no deleted scenes for you.
Wait, what does that mean? Wait, what does that mean? This video is brought to you by Delete Me. Super straightforward business. You give them money, they make sure the data brokers aren't selling your personal information on the internet. So if you don't know, pretty much any time that you use social media or any other free thing on the internet, that company's probably making money by harvesting your personal information, selling that to data brokers, and then data brokers sell it to whoever. Next thing you know, you're getting weird emails and robocalls, but luckily these data brokers have to delete your information if you fill out the appropriate request, and Delete Me will do that automatically for you, and then they will keep scanning all the data brokers and filling out requests as needed to make sure that your private information is not being sold on the internet. So if you want to go check them out, I'm going to have them linked in the description down below, and then they're also always linked over on my website, thefatelectrician.com. Let's get back to this video. All right, from the top, 1971, three friends open up a coffee store, not a coffee shop, a coffee store. They're not brewing coffee in-house and letting people leave with drinks. They don't have an atmosphere where people can come in and feel welcomed and drink coffee. No, they have a store that sells coffee beans, coffee, and then coffee making equipment like espresso machines, coffee bean grinders, and coffee pots. And while that sounds like a recipe for failure today, it was actually a huge hit at the time because at this point in time in America, the 1970s, there was no good coffee. There was just like the shit you can get in a can at a grocery store, go home and make yourself. It wasn't good coffee. Americans didn't have a coffee culture per se. It was literally just people drinking coffee to get caffeine, not because they liked coffee. So when the Starbucks guys came out and they started selling actual fresh roasted whole bean coffee, and then you could buy all the equipment to make it yourself at home, it was pretty popular. Then one day, because Starbucks was selling so many coffee pots and espresso machines and coffee bean grinders, the local salesman in charge started to take notice of like, hey, this one little tiny coffee store is selling more coffee making equipment than all the major department stores in the area combined. I need to go figure out what's going on here. And that guy's name was Howard Schultz, the future owner, CEO, and kind of the mastermind behind the entire thing, because he shows up, sees what the Starbucks guys are doing, he falls in love with it. He thinks it's a brilliant idea, and he basically has to beg them to be involved. So they kind of reluctantly let him on board. He becomes the business manager of sorts, and over the course of the next decade, they end up opening 3 more of these coffee stores inside the city of Seattle. Then in the mid-1980s, Howard Schultz ends up going to Italy on vacation, and he goes into an actual Italian coffee shop, which is something like he's never experienced before because they don't have coffee shops like that in America at this point in time. He walks in the door, you can smell freshly ground coffee, there's baristas doing all their fancy kung fu moves, making lattes and shit. There's an entire culture, there's people, you know, reading newspapers, talking, and it hits him. This is literally just a bar, but you get to go to this one before work instead of going after work. Right? Because all a bar is selling atmosphere. You can buy all the alcohol way cheaper at the grocery store, but then you have to drink it at home by yourself, so you're willing to pay 5 times as much to go have that same beer at a bar to enjoy the atmosphere and other people's company, and that's exactly what this coffee shop is doing, but they're doing it with coffee. And Howard realizes he's already the wholesaler for really good coffee, so if he opens up his own coffee shop, it would be like Anheuser-Busch opening up their own bar. He's no longer getting the product at wholesale price, he's getting the product at manufacturing price. He's gonna make a killing. So he goes back home, tries to sell this idea to the other Starbucks guys. They're not having it. This isn't broke. We're not gonna fix it. Just keep doing what we're doing. So Howard Schultz is like, fine, I'm gonna step away from Starbucks. I'm gonna go open up my own coffee shop and do my own thing. This happened in 1985. By 1987, the original 3 Starbucks owners are having some financial troubles with the company. They just want to sell it and move on to a different business venture together. So they offer it up first to their friend Howard, who's been busy running his own coffee shop for the past couple of years. They want $3.8 million for the company of Starbucks, and they're going to give him 60 days to get it, where he doesn't have to compete with a bunch of other buyers. So Howard Schultz now has a 60-day grace period to come up with $3.8 million in the 1980s, so that's way more money than it is today, and he sounds like a crazy person, right? He's going into banks, Starbucks being like, hey, I've got this business idea. I'm going to open up a coffee shop. Think of it as like a bar, but instead of selling beer at night, I'm going to sell coffee in the morning and people are going to come and pay $4 for a cup of coffee. Here's the kicker. We're not going to sell coffee in sizes like small, medium, and large, like literally everything else on the planet. We're just going to come up with some made up Dr. Seuss words like tall, grande, venti, trenta, whatever other random fucking bullshit words I want to make up. And it's going to be a huge hit. You should definitely give me millions and millions of dollars.
Sure.
No, you're dead, Carl. You say no to life, and therefore you're not living. You don't have a girlfriend. You don't have anything close to a girlfriend. Am I right, Carl?
So to everybody's surprise, the bank isn't really interested in that idea, so he starts going to venture capitalists, and finally he gets referred to a venture capitalist by the name of Bill Gates Sr., aka Bill Gates' dad, that agrees to give him the money so that he can buy Starbucks. Now, is that super relevant to the story? No, not really, but I know that by bringing him up, there's now going to be 1,000 conspiracy theories in the comments down below, and I wanted to read them, so you could probably check those out too. Anyways.
Theories, huh? Okay.
Now with Howard Schultz in charge of the company, to everybody's surprise, it starts doing great and he starts opening up more and more Starbucks all over the country. And just to be clear, Starbucks was not the first coffee shop in North America, but it was the first like mainstream chain of coffee shops that was a lot of people's introduction to coffee shops in America. And for that reason, they kind of got credit for a lot of different things. Pretty much anything new that came out in the coffee industry, Starbucks would adopt it and they would kind of get credit for it. Like they didn't invent the Frappuccino, that was invented by Coffee Connection out of Boston, Massachusetts in 1992, but everybody associates a Frappuccino with Starbucks, which obviously was just the next evolution of coffee in America, right? Because it's a very niche community that enjoys a nice strong cup of coffee or a cappuccino or an Americano or a latte, you know, your traditional coffee drinks. So if they wanted to make more money and expand bigger, they needed to appeal to a wider audience. And how do you appeal to a wider audience, particularly an American one? You add fucking 72 grams of sugar and some whipped topping and drizzle some caramel and hot chocolate on top. Fucking bam. Energy milkshake, okay? I know that's gonna upset a lot of people, but if your drink has over 250 calories and it's got whipped topping, it's not coffee, okay? That is a milkshake with caffeine in it.
Wait, is this just milk and sugar?
That's what I said.
Do you drink this every day?
Every morning.
So now they're no longer just targeting coffee snobs, they're targeting kids, teenagers, and most importantly, middle-aged, middle-class housewives that have enough expendable income to afford $12 energy drink milkshakes every single day. So now they're literally just swimming in money, right? The Frappuccino is like a giant iceberg, Starbucks is the Titanic. As soon as those two things collided, there's just money everywhere. So now that they're making a ton of money, their business model is just rapid expansion, okay? Starbucks, you gotta keep this in mind, is not a franchise. All the Starbucks are owned by Starbucks. You can't buy your own Starbucks and be a franchisee. They're all the same company. So these guys are literally just trying to expand everywhere because in the early 1990s, the coffee craze is starting to hit all over the country and they want to be the first coffee place that most people end up trying so they can get those loyal customers and they get all the business. And whether you like Starbucks or not, you got to admit they did a pretty good job at being literally fucking everywhere all the time because Starbucks is like the only business I've ever been in where I can be inside of a Starbucks, look out the window and see another Starbucks off in the distance. And this goes on for almost a decade. Silly. Starbucks is just raking in the money, opening up new stores all over the place. And by 2000, Howard Schultz decides that he's going to step down as CEO and he's going to focus all of his efforts into expanding the company, having Starbucks everywhere, all over the world. That same year, Howard Schultz takes Starbucks to China, which is absolutely insane because China drinks tea. They don't drink coffee.
Pour the tea.
Regardless, Howard Schultz shows up in China, opens up a Starbucks, basically like just, hey, commies, I know you guys like tea, but hear me out, try some coffee and some blue jeans, it's way cooler. And to everybody's surprise, the Chinese people fucking loved it, and they started opening up Starbucks at a rate that Starbucks had never seen, okay? They were opening up a new Starbucks every 15 hours for 20 years straight in China. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, nothing warms my heart more than when a communist nation falls in love with American fast food. It's just perfect.
What happened?
I won.
Fast forward to 2008, Starbucks is now losing money for some reason. Nobody can really figure out why. So Howard Schultz comes back, becomes CEO again, and he's trying to figure out what have they done to his company. He's been focusing on growing, opening up new locations. Meanwhile, all the locations that have already been opened aren't making as much money as they should be. What on earth is going on? Schultz discovers for the past 8 years in his absence that he's been letting a bunch of business majors run his business, and all they care about is how to maximize profits. So they did just that. They streamlined everything. They automated everything. Starbucks Starbucks no longer grinds coffee in-house at its coffee shops. They do it all in a factory and just ship the ground coffee there. It's quicker, it's more efficient, it probably makes more money, but now Starbucks, a coffee shop, doesn't smell like freshly ground coffee. It smells like a hospital. They replaced all the traditional espresso machines with these automatic machines that would just spit out a completely done drink, which means they basically got rid of baristas and they just had a person behind the counter that would grab the cup from the machine that made it and hand it to the person. Essentially, the business majors had gotten rid of the culture and the experience of going to a coffee shop, which was the entire point and justification of overcharging for coffee in the first place. Remember, it's just like a bar. You wouldn't want to go drink a beer inside of a hospital room. You'd rather go home and do that in your backyard. If you're going to go and overpay for beer, you want to go to a cool bar with your friends. It's the same deal with a coffee shop. People pay for products and people pay for experiences, and they got rid of half of that equation, and it's making the entire company suffer.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
Howard Schultz correctly identifies this and pretty much immediately has everybody start grinding the coffee fresh in the individual Starbucks locations to bring back that coffee smell. He gets rid of all the automatic machines, brings back all the traditional coffee shop equipment, and then he shuts down every single Starbucks and retrains all the baristas in how to turn this place into an actual coffee shop again. And with that, the crisis is averted. Everything's back on course. They're making money again like they're supposed to be. Howard Schultz has one eye on the past. He knows how they got here. He knows what he needs to keep doing to be successful, but now he's got to keep that other eye on the future. Okay, got to remember, it's 2008, 2009, smartphones are becoming a thing. Everybody's getting an app. Starbucks has to get an app, right? Okay, so they build the Starbucks app. Now the app is super straightforward. You take money, you put it on the app, the money sits there until you spend it at a Starbucks, and then when you do spend money from the app, you're going to get stars, which is basically your rewards, and once you get so many stars, you get a free drink. And then as time progressed, you could do online ordering, and you could order from your phone, so it was ready when you got to the coffee shop if you were in a hurry or something. But the key function of the Starbucks app is that it's essentially a gift card that's on your phone. You charge it up, you spend it at Starbucks, you get free rewards. And it works out great for a lot of people, right? If you go to Starbucks every day, spending $10 a trip, and you're spending $300 a month at Starbucks, you can just take $300 at the beginning of the month, charge up your Starbucks thing, and you're good to go, and then you get a bunch of free drinks along the way. But here's the catch with that. While it functions like a gift card to the consumer, it functions like a bank to Starbucks. Okay? I mean, think about how a bank works. You go to a bank, you open up an account, and then you give them your money, and then they just hang on to it for you until they need it. And in the meantime, they go and they invest your money and make money off of your money, and then they give you some of that money back, and that's how much interest you accrue. But what Starbucks has done is you now give Starbucks money, and they sit on that money, and then they don't have to give you that money back. You can't get your money out of the Starbucks app. The only thing you can do with that money now is buy coffee at Starbucks. Yeah. And they don't have to give you interest for it, right? If you give Starbucks $300, they get to sit on it and do whatever the fuck they want with it. They owe you $300 worth of coffee, which to them probably only costs like $80 to make, but that's their money now, and they get to do whatever they want with it, right? They could literally put it in the stock market and make, 7% interest off of all your money. Meanwhile, you're making nothing.
The only problem you're gonna have is that you didn't buy more. Sound fair enough?
My wife might divorce me, but yeah, let's do it.
And here's the thing, it's basically a win-win because you don't care. You have $100 in there. They would have paid you like 7 cents. Who cares? It's no big deal, right? But when Starbucks, who in 2024 has 35,000 locations and millions of customers, has all these people with $5, $10, $15, $20, $100, $300 in their Starbucks account sitting there doing nothing, Starbucks as of 2024 has $1.7 billion sitting inside of their app that hasn't been redeemed yet. Okay, $1.7 billion is more than 90% of all banks in the United States of America have access to. Starbucks is literally one of the biggest banks in the country. They don't have to pay interest to any of their clients. They're not FDIC insured, and they don't owe you shit. Bear in mind, even if you do redeem it, they're making like 100% profit margin built into their prices already. And on top of that, they already know that like 10% of people are just gift cards that are never actually going to redeem it, or that got lost, or they changed phones and they lost track of their account, so they're just going to start a new one. There was $20 there. It's not worth the hassle. Starbucks just gets to keep that money forever. But here's the crazy part, because Starbucks hasn't actually given the customer their product yet. It's just $1.7 billion that's redeemable by the customer, which means that that $1.7 billion that is sitting inside of a Starbucks bank account controlled 100% by Starbucks isn't income, it's not profit, it's not revenue, it's a liability, meaning it's not taxed at all. So Starbucks essentially has a $1.7 billion 0% interest untaxed loan that they can use to invest on whatever the fuck they want. They could do the most conservative investing on the planet. They could take all $1.7 billion and invest it in US government treasury bonds that pay 5% and still make $85 million a year for doing fucking nothing.
The real question is this, was all this legal? Absolutely fucking not.
Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, Starbucks has literally done what cryptocurrency has tried to do. They created their own currency, right? When you look at the US dollar is backed by the US government, which used to be backed by gold, but now it's just backed by the biggest military on the planet. America used to run on the gold standard, now we just run on the lead standard. Regardless, that's what you're banking on when you put your money in US dollars. You're banking on the US government not failing. Starbucks, when you put money in their app, you're just banking on the fact that you're going to be able to go pretty much anywhere in the country or most places around the world and be able to redeem that magical internet coupon on your phone for some good coffee. Okay, the name Starbucks is starting to make a lot more sense now, isn't it? Okay, and here's what I want you to think about. Think about a bank. You walk into a bank, in the lobby, there's always free coffee, and then you walk in, you give them your money, and they hang on to it until you want it back. Starbucks does the exact same fucking thing, except somehow they get away with charging you money for the coffee, and then they never ever have to give you your money back. They're only gonna give you coffee. This is the craziest business model on the planet, okay? And the best part is, there's no victims. Nobody's mad, okay? Everybody that gives Starbucks their money never expects their money back. They just want coffee, and that's exactly what they get. They're happy. Starbucks gets a $1.7 billion untaxed 0% interest loan, makes a ton of money. Everybody gets their coffee. It's the most incredible business model I've ever come across, ever. Okay, at this point, I feel like I've said pretty much nothing but good things about Starbucks, and I need to talk a little smack now so that things can be balanced.
All things should be.
I don't even know where to start, so we're just going to start with the union thing. Unions are a very political topic. Democrats typically like them. Republicans typically hate them. I'm not getting into what should or shouldn't happen or who's right or who's wrong. All I'm going to say, the baristas have been trying to have a Starbucks union for like the past 10 years, and Starbucks has been fighting tooth and nail to prevent that from happening. And in 2002, to help Starbucks accomplish this, they hired a new manager in Global Intelligence for Retail Operations, which is probably the most menacing title I could possibly come up with. But what's more interesting is this person's background and who they worked for previously. Those being the Central Intelligence Agency.
Seriously?
And the Pinkerton Group.
Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Pinkerton.
Seconded to the United States
Sounds familiar
government.
for some reason.
Nice to finally meet.
Okay, just so we're all on the same page. First of all, CIA, right out of the gate, overkill immediately. But then you add the Pinkerton Group on top of it, and this is fucking insane. Okay, because if you don't know, the Pinkertons are literally the fucking bad guys from Red Dead Redemption 2, okay? They've been banned from doing federal work for the government since like 1893. Do you know how sketchy you have to be to get banned from working for the United States federal government? And to make it even worse, the reason they got banned, it's literally called the Anti-Pinkerton Act of 1893. The main reason that it went into effect was because the Pinkertons got hired to bust up unions in the 1800s, and they were doing that by joining the unions secretly and breaking them up, which led to a shit ton of violence and murders. So the fact that Starbucks hired one to keep the baristas in line is some of the most unhinged shit I've heard in my entire life. That'd be like if your local school district's administrator hired an ex-Blackwater guy to keep the English department in check, okay? It's complete overkill. Do you know how much money I would pay to be able to be a fly on the wall during the interview for that job and the events leading up to it? Okay, now on to the new CEOs. Howard Schultz retired in 2002, and Starbucks has been struggling ever since because immediately upon entering the job position as CEO, his successor had a brilliant idea. What if we quit focusing on being a coffee shop and we divert all of our efforts and attention to being better at being a drive-through coffee service? Which, to be fair, if you don't think about it, this is absolutely brilliant, right? Because Starbucks has never made this exact mistake before between 2000 and 2008. And even if they did, who cares? Because the only thing better than making a mistake is making the same exact mistake twice.
You actually this stupid.
So obviously that CEO didn't last very long. He was employed for a total of 17 months before he was forced to step down by the board. And
That's a short
Starbucks just
stint.
hired their new CEO, the former CEO of Chipotle, and apparently this guy is awesome. I think under his command, Chipotle's stock price rose 700%. So that's great, but here's the problem. This guy lives in California, and he didn't want to move all the way up to Seattle because he enjoys the sun and the beaches, and he didn't want to move where it's gloomy and always raining. But Starbucks really wanted to hire this guy, so what they came up with was he can super commute to Starbucks headquarters 3 times a week. And when I say super commute, I mean he's going to get to take the Starbucks private jet from California to Seattle, 1,000 miles round trip 3 times a week. The man's literally the Taylor Swift of CEOs, okay? And honestly, good for him. It's kind of fucking gangster that he got offered a job for $1.3 million a year with a $10 million sign-on bonus and a bunch of stock options.
Crap.
Dude's making millions and millions of dollars a year, and he's still like, nah, I'm not taking the job. I don't want to move. And Starbucks folds and is like, fuck it. You can take the private jet. We'll pay for it to fly you to work 3 times a week. That's a gangster ass move. I kind of respect it. But on the flip side, we've got the environment, you know, climate change, which a lot of people care a whole lot about. And to be completely honest, I'm not really one of them. I mean, look at me. I don't exactly scream climate change activist or active in general, really. But regardless, as far as I'm concerned, if they're willing to pay to have this guy fly private 3 times a week, more power to him. Go right ahead. He could drive a fucking M1 Abrams tank to work every day for all I care. Okay, but I don't ever want to hear Starbucks talking about climate change and being green ever again, all right?
No.
This is the same company that tried to make the entire planet drink out of reusable cups with mushy-ass paper straws, and half their website is dedicated to showing off how much they care about the environment, how many environmental impact studies they've done, and blah, 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 blah. What do the environmental impact studies say? Only poor people can put carbon into the atmosphere? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys just tell the truth? Throw it up on the website. Have a press release that just straight up says, hey, we've hired the scientists, the mathematicians, we've done the research, we've done the calculations, and we've come to the conclusion that if we can inconvenience enough poor people, it's gonna offset all the rich people behaving like giant assholes all the time. I'm dead serious. You should actually do it, because you wanna know what's gonna happen? Basically nothing. I guarantee you there will be a climate change protest outside of Seattle headquarters for like 45 minutes. Literally just long enough for all the college students that showed up to get a quick picture for Instagram to show how much they care, and then they're all gonna disappear and go back to what they were doing. And you wanna know what they're gonna leave behind? A mountain of garbage, and half of that garbage is gonna be empty Starbucks cups anyways, okay? Nobody actually cares. Everybody's virtue signaling. Starbucks isn't a coffee shop, it's an unregulated bank. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is to go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out. You know, if Starbucks was actually smart, they would just hire the CIA and the Pinkertons to assassinate climate change, and then we wouldn't have this problem in the first place.
Oh, unfortunately, climate change itself is not something that you can assassinate. It doesn't work that way. No. There you go. Starbucks, the unregulated bank. Very weird. Another fun and informative video from the Fat Electrician. I will put a link to the original in the description, and if you have any recommendations for other videos to watch, drop it in the comments. And thanks for watching. Remember to hit like and subscribe.